Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for checking it out if you're new. So, we finally have another tier list. And this week, I am checking out every X-Men movie that has been released so far. This list will include Deadpool and Wolverine. I saw it yesterday on opening night. Don't worry though, no spoilers in this video. I'm just going to place it where I feel it belongs in the tier list, but I will not spoil the movie. Alright, so we've got 15 movies here. Yes, 15. 14 of them are the theatrically released X-Men films we all know and love or hate. So we are going to start with Generation X. If you don't know, Generation X is a TV pilot that was supposed to bring the X-Men to television in the 90s. It's terrible, honestly. It stars Jubilee and some other D-list X-Men, and then Emma Frost. Banshee, Emma Frost, and Jubilee are the three X-Men I can remember off the top of my head. We watched it over on Phil with 1L's channel. Check out that video when he's got it available. So yeah, Generation X is terrible. I'm just throwing it in D tier. I'm letting you know now that is going to be the very bottom of the list. Like, it's only up from here. So let's just go with these in release order. And let's see, we've got the very first X-Men movie, which I think I'm going to put right here in the middle, in B tier. This was, of course, the start of the Fox universe. Without this movie, we don't get all the other movies. And they really did take a chance, because superhero movies weren't what they are today. Today, we get a superhero movie every 2 months. But back then, it was a real risk to make a movie about the X-Men. And I think this one captures it well. It's silly and things don't make sense. And it's not very comic accurate, but you can tell that they tried and it had heart. And so I am going to put it in B for now, right in the middle of the road. Is it perfect? Is it the best they could? No. But it gets much worse. So then we have X2, and I don't think anybody's going to be surprised when I put X2 up here in S tier. So X2 follows the group as they definitely expand upon the X-Men mythos. Like, if X1 was kind of the experimental, like I said, dipping their toes into the superhero genre, X2 is where they go, yeah, we are a comic book movie. You've got Magneto and the X-Men teaming up against Stryker as he tries to, commit mutant genocide. And it's a really good movie. The characters are great. You really get a lot of Wolverine's backstory. Wolverine, I go back and forth on Wolverine in the comics and in the shows. In the movies, he is the main character. Whether you like that or not, he is the main character. He is the core of the X-Men movies. And so this movie really focuses on his background and his struggle with Stryker, as well as the X-Men learning their place and trying to find where they belong. Are they heroes? Should they fear society, or should they join it? And then following that, we have The Last Stand, which I just rewatched the other day. I rewatched all of these for this list to be able to accurately rank these movies. And The Last Stand is very complicated because it's so bad. Like, it's terrible. But at the same time, it does at least have the charm from these two movies, in that it has the characters, the actors that you liked from the previous movie, even though the story is bad. Like, in this story, they try to very sloppily adapt two different comic storylines, both the Cure and the Dark Phoenix. I don't know why you even put the Dark Phoenix in there, because it doesn't. It's just kind of shoehorned in. The Cure, I would say, is the main storyline. Everybody remembers this movie as like the bad Dark Phoenix movie. But actually, I would say there's like 5 minutes of Dark Phoenix stuff. And then the rest is the Cure. And so I just don't know what to think. Like, it's so nothing of a movie. I have no desire to rewatch it anytime soon. And I'm sure you all feel the same. That being said, I think there are worse movies coming up. So I'm going to put it in C. It might fall down into D by the end of this list. Especially when, going in release order, next up we have X-Men Origins Wolverine. And this movie's really bad too. Like, man, the 1-2 punch, I'm surprised the franchise survived. Like, I guess it kind of didn't. The X-Men were always in, like, the downward spiral afterwards. But I'm surprised it survived between The Last Stand and X-Men Origins. So, X-Men Origins Wolverine, it's a terrible X-Men movie, but I almost prefer it to The Last Stand. Only because it's such a schlocky, fun, little stupid action movie that only has one plot going on. It is just Wolverine's like revenge against Sabretooth slash Stryker versus The Last Stand has the like 3 different plot lines going on. And so, oh, this is gonna get me in trouble with people because yeah, like it's so bad. It's the Deadpool of it is everything about this movie is bad. But I could see myself, if you set X-Men Origins and The Last Stand in front of me and said, pick one, we're going to watch it right now, I would really struggle with which one. Like, The Last Stand is short, at least. It's like an hour 50. It's mercifully short. But Origins Wolverine, we would at least have a laugh at. Like, this one is the better movie, slightly, but this is the more fun movie. I'll mess around with them later, because then we have maybe the best movie in this series in X-Men First Class. I have always been a Days of Future Past supporter when it comes to the X-Men movies. Like, I have always preached that Days of Future Past is the best one. I think my most recent rewatch for this video has changed my mind on that. I think First Class is so perfect. It captures what the X-Men are for. They are a team of mutants who are trying to find their place in the world, and like I said with X2, the trying to figure out, should they save the world or should they hide from it or should they fight it? I think Charles and Magneto's relationship in this movie is really well done. Like, we're always told in the classic X-Men trilogy that they used to be friends, but we never really get that. Like, they are just constantly fighting. Versus here we see where their friendship began and how it all fell apart. And I used to think the yellow jumpsuits in this movie were goofy, but now, honestly, they're probably my favorite suit that the X-Men wear in all these movies. So yeah, it's got a great third act. I think it maybe has the best third act of all these movies because every character has something to do. You see their powers utilized so well that yeah, I just love First Class. If I was told this person has no idea what the X-Men are, I would show them First Class. I wouldn't show them 2000s X-Men. I would show them First Class if it was like, I have no idea what the X-Men are, but I'm kind of interested. Go watch First Class. And then we've got the Wolverine, which I think the Wolverine fits nicely in B tier here with 2000s X-Men. The Wolverine is the awkward middle child in the Wolverine trilogy, in that it's not as terrible as Origins, and it's not as great as Logan. So it just ends up forgotten by the end of it. But it does have cool action, and the story is interesting. It's really that third act where it kind of falls apart, and it's like, not every movie has to be the big world-ending catastrophe, but I see where this movie got skipped because you don't need to have seen it. Like, that's a problem all of the X-Men movies have with their continuity, is that they're not consistent in what you do or do not have to see. And so I feel like a lot of people skipped this one because they were just like, why would I go see the Wolverine movie when I know he's going to be in Days of Future Past next year? And so with that, I have Days of Future Past, which I was going back and forth when making this list on putting it in S or A. Like, I truly do love this movie. Like, I don't want to stack S tier, but I think I'm going to put it up here. I love this movie so much. I think, is it accurate to the original story? Not really. It's kind of just taking the name and general premise of we send an X-Men back in time. In the comics, it's Bishop. Here, it's Wolverine because, like I told you, Wolverine is the main character of these X-Men movies. Which maybe that's why I love First Class so much, because he's not in it outside of a cameo. This one really lets the team shine. Versus in Days of Future Past, we suffer. We don't suffer, because I love Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, but we don't get any other point of views. And so Days of Future Past is a fun time travel story where we see both the original trilogy actors interacting with the new trilogy actors. And so I do think it's really fun. It's got some cool action sequences. Like, I love whereas I say, like, the Wolverine falls apart in its third act, and The Last Stand is just mindless action of just everybody throwing shit and jumping on people and explosions. The third act of Days of Future Past is a very small conflict of just, Magneto, Wolverine, Mystique, and Beast, and Charles is there. And so it's a very small story, but I think that's what also makes it kind of, it's got a huge scope of, like, we have to fix the timeline, but at the same time it's also such a small conflict of these characters that they really get to shine. And then we've got the first Deadpool, which I'm going to put up here in A tier. And I think the first Deadpool, I think all of the Deadpool movies are great. Like, they are just really funny. I think this first movie is the funniest, which I think it gets the benefit of being the first one. So it sets all of these tropes and jokes up, versus then in the sequels they reiterate things. But yeah, this movie, especially because, like I said, Deadpool is introduced in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and he is terrible in that. But I don't think we get this Deadpool without this movie. And it's almost like an apology letter where he's so comic accurate. And it's such a small, simple story. Like, in this first one, it's literally Deadpool has to go save his girlfriend. Like, that's it. There's no the world's gonna end or time is gonna collapse. It's literally he's got to go save his girlfriend. And so because of that, it's a very character driven story centered pretty much entirely around Deadpool. He does have a supporting cast, but he's the star of this film. I am going to take the moment to move Origins Wolverine down to D tier just because I realize what we still have left on the list. And so I've got X-Men Apocalypse. And now you see, old Connor would have told you that X-Men Apocalypse is fine. It's in B tier. But I rewatched it before going to see Deadpool and Wolverine. I rewatched every X-Men movie, like I said already. And I almost want to say it's D tier. Like, it teeters here on the edge, like bottom of C into D. Because this movie is just boring. Like, it's long and boring and nothing happens. Nobody's connected to anything. Like, there's just stuff that happens. Like, it doesn't feel like there's a plot. You've got this group of X-Men is captured by Stryker, and they happen to escape because of something that this group does. But they don't realize that group is there. Like, they don't interact. Nobody interacts. Nobody has any time for character development. They throw Magneto. These movies do have the bad habit of trying to make Magneto, these sequel trilogy movies, of trying to make Magneto like a good guy, and then they're like, no, he's bad. And you can only do that so many times, and I feel like this one is the most egregious. Characters like Storm and Psylocke just have, an Angel, have no character at all. They're just there to be bad guys to fight. And speaking of bad guys to fight, Apocalypse is something in this movie. I don't know what he is. He's played by Oscar Isaac, Poe Dameron himself. And he's done practically through makeup and costuming, and I don't think it works. I love when they do practical effects over CGI, but Apocalypse is supposed to be this big, imposing figure. Like, he is basically big blue Thanos, like, size-wise. So to see him as just this little guy that people compare to Ivan Ooze and stuff is a little disappointing. And he doesn't do anything in the movie. Like, he does fight them finally at the end, but it's far too late by then. Because Apocalypse is known for his seedy, pulling the strings, behind the scenes planning, but he's also not afraid to get down and get dirty. Like, he gets in there and he beats some ass. And so this Apocalypse literally just spends the whole movie just kicked back, eyes rolled into the back of his head, learning and plotting and making Magneto and the other horsemen do all the bad stuff for him. And he's just trying to take Charles's body, and I don't know. I think it's a very bad adaptation of Apocalypse, a very boring Apocalypse. And for that, I think it makes it a very boring movie that, like I said, teeters here between C and D. I'm going to leave it in C because I think it's less offensive than either of these two, though. Alright, and then we've got Logan. And Logan is a hard one. Like, it's gotta go in S tier, right? Like, Logan is almost perfect. It is a really good final film for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. We see him, he is dying, he is aging as he has to escort Laura / X-23 across the country to safety. And we see him that, yes, he's the grumpy old man, but that facade does break and he does grow to care for this little girl, especially once he realizes who she is. And it's just, it's a great adaptation of the old man Logan story that's hit or miss in the comic. So it was cool to see it done here. Alright, and then we've got Deadpool 2. And frankly, I would put Deadpool 2 right there next to Deadpool. I do enjoy all three Deadpool films. I think they're all funny. I think Deadpool 2 has a lot of cool action sequences, while maybe being less funny than Deadpool 1. It does have that bigger story where this time Cable has come back in time to kill Russell, and Deadpool has to protect Russell and, save his soul, so to speak. I think the third act in this one is maybe more fun than the third act in Deadpool 1, because the Deadpool 1, he's only fighting the one person, versus here, they're fighting an entire orphanage full of criminals, and so he has to bring his team, bring his friends to help him and to fight the Juggernaut and Russell. And so I do think Deadpool 2 is probably just under Deadpool 1 for me. I also think I've seen Deadpool 2 just too many times. It was one of those movies where it came out in 2018 and my friends just wanted to constantly watch it whenever we'd hang out. We'd have a movie night and it's, what are we going to watch? Oh, we could watch Deadpool 2. And so I think, frankly, personally, I am burned out on Deadpool 2 for a while. And also Deadpool 2 kind of pushed everybody away, because then we have Dark Phoenix and the New Mutants. Both of these movies kept getting delayed because they wanted everybody to be away from each other. They didn't want Dark Phoenix too close to Deadpool 2. They didn't want New Mutants too close to Dark Phoenix, and so everything just kept moving. So then we've got Dark Phoenix, the second attempt by the same people. I don't know how they let that happen. Like, don't you think you would be like, these guys screwed it up bad last time, so we're not going to let them do it again. But they did. They let Simon Kinberg, who was a writer on The Last Stand, come and write and direct this one. And so it's also a very bad Dark Phoenix adaptation. The Dark Phoenix storyline isn't my favorite to begin with, but this version with the whole, like, oh, she's got this trauma, and the trauma is this entity inside her, but then we also do the alien. It's like, you can't have your cake and eat them both. Like, with The Last Stand, I give The Last Stand the slight slack they weren't ready to do the alien storyline. The Phoenix Force is an alien in the comics that possesses Jean Grey. So I see where they didn't want to do that. They thought that might be too weird for audiences. So they did the split personality thing in The Last Stand. But then in Dark Phoenix, they go, yeah, it's an alien. But she's also got a lot of trauma, and she's also got the Phoenix already inside of her, as we saw at the end of Apocalypse. And it just... oh, bad movie. Bad X-Men adaptation. And it makes me mad that, like I said, you let the same people who screwed it up the first time go, oh, but don't worry, they'll fix it this time. As if it wasn't going to end up the same. And so, with all that being said, I don't know, because like Dark Phoenix is at least more competently made than Origins. And I almost want to say Dark Phoenix is, again, mercifully short. Dark Phoenix is like an hour 50. So it's shorter than Apocalypse. Apocalypse is like 2 hours and 20 minutes for some reason. And is like, I almost want to say I would rather watch Dark Phoenix again before Apocalypse. But then again, Apocalypse at least has so much dumb stuff and fun action that you can laugh at it and turn your brain off. Versus Dark Phoenix is just a lot of Jean doing this to people and people being like, no, Jean, don't. It's got maybe the worst action, the worst everything about the new movies, but still better than either of these. So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave this looking like this, which does make the New Mutants a bit complicated. So the New Mutants is a spin-off film starring a new group of mutants, as you couldn't tell from the title. And this movie had a whole bunch of issues where it was stuck in production hell for so long. They were supposed to do reshoots. It was supposed to be like semi-horror. And it ended up just being kind of nothing. Like, is it as bad as these? No. But at the same time, nothing happens. It's so boring that you would almost say, like, you're not very good. But, yeah, like, it just feels like wasted potential. Because you have castings in this. Like, you have Anya Taylor-Joy as Magic. That was perfect when she was cast in that role. And when they filmed this in, like, 2017. Now, it's, yeah, just a movie that exists. Like, I feel indifferent about it, which I guess puts it in B or C. I'm going to put it down here in C. I will mess around with this after the initial placements, because we've got one last movie, and that's Deadpool and Wolverine, which is the finale, the goodbye to the Fox universe. Obviously, there's going to be some recency bias, seeing as I just saw it, but I do really think, again, I'm not going to spoil the movie, but I do think it's a good send-off to the Fox universe. Like, it does serve as a goodbye to Fox. And as that goodbye to the Fox universe, and as the final movie, assumedly, starring all of these actors in these roles before they're rebooted for the MCU, I'm going to put it in A to be safe for now. I'm putting it in A. Okay, so now that we've got these all placed, let's see if everything is about where it belongs. Like, if we look at D, yeah, that looks right. Like, Generation X is terrible. It's got racial slurs and everything you could imagine. That just makes it bad. And then X-Men Origins Wolverine, what a mess of a movie. I don't know what they were thinking. It's got some cool action that you could watch on YouTube. Watch the fight scenes, watch the action clips, but nothing for it. Going up to C tier, I think we do have to say The Last Stand is the best of this bunch. Like, even though I got beef with The Last Stand, like, I do not like this movie, I think it's at least trying. And that might sound terrible, because I don't believe any filmmaker goes out, like, not trying. But I feel like, and maybe it's the nostalgia of being still, glazed over from these two movies. That it's like, well, at least they tried. At least it's got all the characters I like. Versus these three, I don't like any of these people anymore. Like I said, I keep going back and forth on this, but I feel like Dark Phoenix is just like they didn't try. Like the makeup with Jennifer Lawrence in these last two movies is inexcusable in my opinion. Basically, what happened was the Mystique makeup is incredibly uncomfortable, and so for these last two movies, Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, they come up with every excuse in the book of why Mystique looks like just normal Jennifer Lawrence. They're like, oh, she doesn't want to inspire people with her mutant look in this one. And then here it's because we don't have an excuse. It's because we're not going to cover Jennifer Lawrence in that makeup again. And it's so just like they feel lazy. And I hate to say that about a movie. But. And then we've got the New Mutants, which is arguably better made than at least these two. But if you sat these four movies in front of me and said, all right, pick one, I'm going to pick The Last Stand. And then I would probably watch Apocalypse, and then Dark Phoenix, and then New Mutants. Yeah. Not a great batch of films to all three come out back to back with each other. And then if we look at B tier, this is fine. Like I said, I think the X-Men was a good start, but it got better, and it got so much worse. And then we have the Wolverine that is just alright. It's fine. It's nothing terrible, but it's something. It's a movie that exists. Like, it's got cool, good action, and the story is good. It is just that third act where it kind of falls apart, and I see where people feel like it's not important. Because it does never get acknowledged again. Like, there are things that happen at the end of this movie that should clearly lead into Days of Future Past that just don't. Like, they just don't. So then, if we're moving up to A tier, I've got this is the Deadpool tier, as we see. And this one is complicated. Because recency bias tells me it looks something like this. But I'm not sure about Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, I think, again, no spoilers, I think Deadpool and Wolverine is maybe the least funny of the three. I do go into these, like, kind of looking at them as comedy films. But I don't know if Deadpool and Wolverine is trying to be funny. It kind of is that goodbye to the Fox universe. It's either this or this. Like, I don't think it's better than the first Deadpool. But I think the two sequels are pretty interchangeable just depending on your mood. I'm going to leave it like this for now. And then, moving up to S tier. This is where it gets tricky. These are all, again, great S tier films. But I think for me, it looks something... Ooh, it's hard. It's complicated. Because these are all four really good movies. Clearly, they're in S tier. But I think First Class is the best one. It's untouchable. I could watch that movie again right now. Like I said, I slept on this movie for years. I probably haven't seen this since it came out in theaters until this most recent rewatch. And I was just like, wow, that's some good X-Men right there. And then Days of Future Past is also really cool. Like, I really like this new cast of characters. Like Michael Fassbender as Magneto, James McAvoy as Charles Xavier, you've got Nicholas Hoult as Beast, and so on. I even like Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique in these two movies. And then by these two movies, I hate all of these characters. I hate all of them. I don't want to see them ever again. But like these two, they're actually really good. And X2 is also very good. Like, I think the thing that keeps X2 from going up to the top for me is that it's still got the 2000-isms. of still holding back, like being slightly afraid of embracing the superhero of it. Everybody's in normal clothes for most of the movie, or they're in the black leather. Versus here, they get the yellow jumpsuits. Here they are in normal clothes in the past, but then in the future they've got these cool armored suits that also Magneto has his armor that I used to say that the Days of Future Past armor for Magneto was probably my favorite, and I think it might still be. Like, I do really like Ian McKellen's look in X2, but I almost want to say I like the Days of Future Past costume for Magneto the best. And then he wears that ugly ass outfit at the end of First Class. Like, what were they thinking? That being said, the silver helmet with the yellow jumpsuit, that goes hard. And so, yeah, I think my list looks something like this. I think I'm going to leave it how it is, right here. So let me know what you think of the X-Men Fox movies in the comments down below. This is it. We're saying goodbye to them, at least for now. Who knows who might show up later in the MCU or in Secret Wars or anything like that. Who knows what Marvel's doing. But for now, we had some X-Men movies. Some were great. Some were not so great. But overall, I am glad they exist. It's been a fun ride revisiting these during my X-Men high. Let me know your thoughts on the Fox X-Men in the comments down below. If you liked what you saw here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know when that next one's coming. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.